The astrology houses. I like this little layout, whoever made this. This is cute. I've been scrolling on Pinterest again, so let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, we have to remember that each house is going to have a different zodiac. So there's a little bit of that area that you might kind of see like that resemblance of that zodiac. So like the first house, it would probably, let's say it's in Gemini, it might have some Gemini characteristics, maybe very good communicator. You identify well as being a good communicator. You're also able to really get your message out. So you kind of have like that messenger area, and you're very analytic as well. But the first house is really about the self. The second house is about the physical possessions. And when we think about the second house, that's like material gains. That's also like wealth, abundance. It's kind of like that energy that feels like you could see it, you could touch it, you could feel it, you want it. Third house, communication and learning. And when I think about communication and learning, that reminds me of kind of like how you perceive things. How you perceive things in areas of taking it all in and also expressing it to others. The fourth house is the home house, the family house. I have a huge stellium in my fourth house. I'm not going to tell you guys my birth chart because you know why? It's mine. But anyways, so I definitely think that where you have a lot of zodiac energy, you see that kind of intertwine the most in your life. And to me, home family is like 100% everything that I love. A fifth house in performance. So that's kind of like your creator house. That's kind of like your brave house. That's like your movement house. That's very creative. And it kind of reminds me of the solar plex and the sacral chakra energy. I know it's weird that I think like that, but I do. The sixth house is your everyday house. This is kind of like your house of your rituals, of your health, and also like your well-being. Like what do you do every day really plays out in your health when you think about it, and your overall wellness. And each pattern that you make is repetitive. So think about it like that. The seventh house is your relationship house, the area of interpersonal, and interpersonal relationships I feel like always get overlooked in this house because a lot of people always take it back to the first house thinking it's all about identity. But sometimes with the seventh house, we see those interpersonal relationships, how you are dealing with the relationships, the external and the interpersonal relationships. Also, the eighth house is, the eighth house is a little wild, honey. If there was one house that you want to like play in, but not playing it all the time, it's the eighth house. And the eighth house, that's your weekend house. That's a fun house. But then it has like this bad side. When you have too much fun, it can result in some bad, dangerous situations. So the eighth house is like that spooky house. Like you don't want to be spooky all the time, but you get a little spooky sometimes and it's fun, but not too much. The ninth house, your spiritual house in some ways. And also, I also see this house as a travel house and an expansion house where you really want to expand, move, keep going. And you also want to learn. And sometimes this is about philosophies, and sometimes this is also about like education. The 10th house, everybody says, is the career house. But in all honesty, I also see the career house as your legacy house. And I think sometimes you gotta look at the planets that are really in there and what zodiac that's in, and where's this legacy really going to play out. Is it a healer legacy? Is it a successful legacy in the area of money? Is it a legacy on work? Is it a legacy on career only, or is it a legacy of something a little bit more deep? And then right before that energy really comes, we have to talk about the energy of, one more time, of the 10th house being the masculine house. So sometimes we'll see issues with the fathers, like we see issues with the mothers in the 5th, but with the fathers, sometimes you got to pay attention to that masculine energy, just like you would pay attention to the feminine energy. And sometimes the 10th house can feel a little too aggressive sometimes, I've noticed. The 11th house. Oh my gosh, the 11th house. The 11th house is the wider world house. To me, that's the collective house. That's where the collective lays at. That's where the community lays at. That's where the big processes lay out. Wider in meaning is big, it's expanding. How are you with the collective? The collective is the community, the people who listen to you, the people who understand you. And do you understand the people? That's the other question. The 12th house, the inner self, a lot of people consider this the spiritual house, the psychic house, but this could also be the house where you get a little naive and stupid. I'm just saying, don't join a cult. Please don't join a cult. Please don't join a cult. I've seen people join cult. And some of these spiritual healers are really fucking cultish. So be careful out there in the spiritual world. Okay, that's the houses. Gotta love Pinterest.